From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, a surprise find.
And we'd always called this paddock Bald Hill.
On ancient lands in Australia, more refinery waivers are expected from EPA.
I think that they're violating the law.
Congress has started its month-long recess, so is there lost hope that a deal can be ratified between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico? We have an update from Washington.
And trade negotiators meet in China. Is a deal getting close?
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Stock markets started Tuesday sharply lower after U.S. President Donald Trump cast doubts on any hopes of an imminent easing in trade tensions between the U.S. and China.
We also had Trump tweets this morning, in particular talking about Chinese trades. The sentiment here today is that this is not anywhere near being solved. Once again, we feel disappointed about what's going on, and that puts pressure on things like cotton, soybeans, hogs.
That is, trade negotiators met in Shanghai for a 12th round of talks. The low expectations from both countries dampening hopes of potential breakthroughs. Instead, negotiators focusing on preventing tensions from escalating ahead of the 2020 presidential election. Now, the president accusing Beijing of not delivering on promises to buy more U.S. agricultural products. And in a series of tweets Tuesday, the president saying, quote, China is doing very badly. Worst year in 27. Was supposed to start buying our agricultural product now. No signs that they are doing so. That is the problem with China. They just don't come through. In another tweet, my team is negotiating with them now, but they always change the deal in the end to their benefit. Speaking as he left the White House Tuesday, the president continuing on the topic of China, saying we're either going to make a great deal or not one at all.
They had the worst year they've had in 27 years. Yesterday's Wall Street Journal, the worst year in 27 years. Companies are leaving China by the thousands, and their prices are coming down. And I will tell you this, China is dying to make a deal with me. But whether or not I'll do it, it's up to me. It's not up to them. I think if China had their wish, they'd wait till after the election. They'll pray that Trump loses, and then they'll make a deal with the stiff.
Negotiators with the Trump administration are focusing on whether China will return to the language in a 150-page document discussed before talks hit an impasse in late May. But other reports say objections to the agreement appear to have come directly from China's President Xi Jinping. China isn't the only country on the trade agenda this week. The deal between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada is being considered by Congress. Axios reporting Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says House Speaker Nancy Pelosi verbally agreed to vote on USMCA by fall, despite some concerns within her party, something Pelosi is denying. Now, Betsy Gibbon is in Washington, D.C. She has the latest. Betsy.
Clinton, Congress dismissed for August recess, all without bringing USMCA to the forefront. Now, some are optimistic this deal can be ratified soon, while others still want some changes. The House of Representatives already home for recess as the Senate finishes up its last days. The Senate Finance Committee completing its short week, holding a hearing Tuesday on the potential trilateral deal between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. Testifying is former Ag Secretary under the Obama administration, Tom Vilsack, in favor of the deal.
Exports to Mexico and Canada matter to the dairy industry and to farms across the United States.
Senate veterans like Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley already knowing ratification for USMCA before August recess would not happen, but he has high hopes for the fall.
It will become law this year, but it won't be brought up in the House of Representatives until Pelosi is comfortable with it, and we got to have some patience with her.
That's because the deal has to head to the Democratic-led House of Representatives before it heads to the party-led Senate, where Grassley feels it'll pass handedly. The longtime senator saying he's been talking with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
And I have some confidence that when she tells me that she wants to get to yes, she does want to get to yes, but she's got so many new members, more new members than any Congress since 1974.
The House Ways and Means Trade Subcommittee sending a delegation, primarily of Democrats, to Mexico earlier in the month to discuss a potential deal. All while U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer holds meetings with a group of Democrats and Speaker Pelosi to follow up with concerns.
Trade Representative Bob Lighthizer has listened to the Democrats, and they're trying to find a mechanism to deal with some of their, I think, legitimate issues relative to enforcement of labor, environmental, and some pharmaceutical patent issues.
Wiesmeyer says it would be a benefit for Pelosi to get bipartisan support to pass major legislation.
And she's got to make sure that the majority of her caucus, or at least enough of her caucus, wants to sign off on that ratification process. She also has to show that under her leadership, the House Democrats can govern, and part of that governing ship is getting major legislation passed. So I think that there will be a bipartisan push to approve the USMCA.
U.S. Trade Representative Chief Ag Negotiator Greg Dowd sits at the table for these trade agreements around the world. He says as far as USMCA, conversations have been positive on Capitol Hill.
And I think it will get passed. And again, in terms of timeline, that's somewhat for the Speaker of the House to decide when she wants to bring it up and do that.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. We contacted Pelosi's staff, but have yet to hear a response to that Axios report. Now, also in Washington, news from the EPA that it will be considering small refinery exemptions in the next few weeks. EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler says he expects to make decisions on small refinery exemptions under the renewable fuel standard for the 2018 compliance year very soon. Now, that news comes as Wheeler toured a refinery in Pennsylvania Monday. Some 40 requests were received for the 2018 compliance year, with 2 being declared ineligible or withdrawn. That leaves 38 still pending. The ethanol industry and Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley are calling on EPA to reallocate those exempted biofuel gallons.
I think that they're violating the law by giving waivers to small refineries that are not in financial trouble. This provision was put in the law in 2005 because there might be some small refineries that it is a burden for them to mix biofuels with petroleum products. But it's just being abused now.
Grassley says he thinks Wheeler, unlike Pruitt, is trying to help, but he's calling on President Trump to step in. He says ultimately it doesn't mean there won't be any waivers, but he thinks there should be more responsibly given. We're heading into August, usually a big month for soybeans. Mike Hoffman gives us an update from the crop in Minnesota. Mike?
Well, Clinton, we're heading into the state of 10,000 lakes. This time it's in Bryceland, Minnesota. Bill Freitag says beans are looking pretty good in his area. USDA seems to agree. 60% of the state's bean crop is rated good to excellent at the moment. While that doesn't seem like a large number, it's higher than many other states in the Corn Belt this season. And coming up, we are going to look at some wind speed forecasts. You can see a little bit windy in the plain states as we start the day today. And western states will turn windy in places as well, mainly the higher elevations, obviously. Not a whole lot to speak of tomorrow morning, except maybe in a thunderstorm there in the central plains. And that's kind of the same idea as we head through the rest of the day tomorrow. We'll talk more about your forecast coming up, but now here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
August is known as a key month for soybeans, but will late planting change that in 2019? We'll discuss it next in Analysis, and later, this Australian sheep farm has more history than its owners realized. What they found and what it means today in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Crop maturities continue to be a major discrepancy this growing season due to late planting. USDA says just 7% of the nation's soybeans are setting pods. Last year, it was 41%. Tyne Morgan has more on what that may mean in today's Analysis from our studios in Kansas City.
Here now with Dwayne Bussey of Bolt Marketing. Dwayne, heading into August, a key time for soybeans typically. You know, the month that can make or break a soybean crop. Yet the crop is so immature this year. And I know you drove from South Dakota to Kansas City. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, we did. We saw a lot of soybeans that are just short. They're way behind, 3 to 4 weeks behind. And so a lot of questions are going to remain on the soybean crop. What is the yield going to be? You know, there has been talk like, well, we need a late frost, but as Matt Bennett pointed out in previous segments, that they're daylight sensitive, so they will stop production no matter what, depending on daylight. It doesn't matter how late the frost is. So the yield is going to be down, I think, for sure. I mean, we just spent the last 3 or 4 years proving that early planted soybeans, right, is how you get the high yields, especially in states like Illinois. Didn't happen. From what I've seen from pictures, is you got soybeans in Illinois that look the exact same as they do in Northeast South Dakota, which just baffles me. They're long ways behind. I'm trimming soybean yield down, I don't know, 5-7 bushels per acre off of last year's number.
And we know there's a lot of question marks around corn yield, but a lot of question marks around soybean yields. There always are. In August, you can't get an accurate picture of just how big or how small of a soybean crop you're going to have. And this year, it seems like those question marks are going to linger longer.
Yeah, they will, but that month of August, like you just mentioned, is so important. Are we going to get the moisture? Right now, we got areas in Illinois that are getting a little dry. I'm surprised the market's not talking about it too much. But I think why soybeans aren't rushing higher because of a drought scenario is because of the old crop stocks, right? We just have too much soybeans. Our demand is down because China isn't buying due to ASF. So even if we're right and we get this bullish talk going and soybean yields are down sharply at the end of the year, you're still going to have enough soybeans left over because of demand being weaker.
If we don't see demand improve, if we're still looking at a carryout situation like we've been seeing, what type of yield would we have to see on beans in order to make a sizable difference to this market?
We're going to need to see a yield drop of, if acres stay the same, let's say about 7 bushels an acre. That way we can get that ending stock below 500 million, and then we have a friendly price situation.
All right, Dwayne, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We talked about weather. Well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll have a check of weather right here on Ag Day.
For marketing advice, call Bolt Marketing, a futures and options brokerage firm. Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Now, there's been plenty of talk about an early frost, but July, well, that just about happened in northern Minnesota Tuesday morning. Temperatures there dipping to 37 degrees at International Falls. That breaks the record of 38 degrees set back in 1898. And Mike, while that's typically one of the coldest spots in the country, temperatures there just don't typically hit the 30s until September or October.
No, and we were talking before, is that a late frost or an early frost?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm not sure which season that falls into. That's incredible. And there may have been a touch of frost at 37. There typically is in some of the lower elevations. Well, the root zone moisture is what we're going to look at first of all, though. And when you just kind of glance at this map, the one thing you notice is the lack of blue. I mean, a month ago, almost the entire center of the country was blue or very wet. Now we're seeing dry spots developing, like northern Indiana, parts of Illinois, parts of Iowa, northern Minnesota. North Dakota's been getting drier. The southeast has been getting drier. West Texas, West Kansas continues to get drier. And it's extremely dry western Montana over into western Washington and Oregon. So this map's becoming a lot more splotchy than it was because those widespread rains are just not occurring. And I don't see them happening either. There's going to be places that get rain. Like this morning, there will be some areas of thunderstorms along this warm front, not too much along the cold front farther east. This thing's just barely pushing southeast, but each afternoon there will be some scattered showers and thunderstorms along it. And the system in the southwest, you typically have a low down there this time of year anyway, but this one's going to kind of fold into the northern cold front, it looks like, as we head through the next couple of days. Heading through tonight then, you can see some more thunderstorms may develop on the southern end of this warm front. Western Missouri, eastern Kansas. Not sure exactly where that's going to occur, but the models have been pretty consistent with that. Another system slowly coming into the Pacific Northwest as we head into the afternoon hours tomorrow. And of course, the afternoon will be the scattered showers and thunderstorms in the southeast and along both fronts through the middle of the country. Precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours from southeast Texas, Louisiana, all the way up to New England. There's been some areas of rain. You can see that shifts eastward a little bit. Each afternoon we shifted a little farther, and our model is showing that complex of thunderstorms, a small one, kind of hitting parts of Missouri, parts of eastern Kansas, and then the scattered stuff out west, which is typical for this time of the year. High temperatures this afternoon, 90s, maybe even a couple of triple digits there. Western Kansas, parts of Oklahoma, pleasant. Mid-70s across most of the Great Lakes. Lows in the 50s. Parts of the Great Lakes tomorrow morning, still muggy down south, and then you can see tomorrow afternoon more of the same, although we do shove some of that humidity farther south as that cold front moves that way. Now, there's the trough in the east, at least a little one. Big Ridge, Western Plains, Eastern Rockies, that's going to sit there. Looks like another piece of energy diving through Western Canada is going to dive into the Great Lakes next week. And that's going to produce even cooler weather than what we've just seen. So we'll be watching that. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, for Fresno, California, hot again. Lots of sunshine, high around 98 degrees. Mankato, Minnesota, mostly sunny and comfortable, high just 77. And finally, Knoxville, Tennessee, warm and humid, a thunderstorm around, high 87.
More updates on the cross-border tomato wars between the U.S. and Mexico. We have that story next. And later, finding peace in the pastures of Australia, where this sheep farm is unlocking an ancient past.
The 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is coming soon. Kicking off August 19th, watch for extensive coverage on air and online. The premier sponsor of Crop Tour is Pioneer, with support from IBM, RCIS, Ram, AeroVironment, Titan Tires, and Farm Credit Services of America.
From our partners at the Packer, the Department of Commerce releasing its preliminary finding showing that Mexico growers have been dumping tomatoes into the U.S. market and setting a dumping margin of 25% on Mexican tomatoes. And while it's just the first blush, the executive vice president of the Florida Tomato Exchange says the findings refute recent Mexican claims that the data they submitted would prove that Mexican tomatoes are not being dumped here. Now, the Commerce decision won't be final until September 19th, and then it has to go to the International Trade Commission for a determination on injury. In the meantime, the Commerce Department and Mexican growers can still negotiate a new suspension agreement that would stop this anti-dumping investigation once again. And produce growers feeling the impact from USDA's recent trade aid announcement. The department planning to purchase more than $236 million in fresh fruits and vegetables, the money coming from one of 3 programs used to help growers affected by tariffs and trade barriers, including the Market Facilitation Program and the Agricultural Trade Promotion Program. Still to come, an ancient quarry discovered on a farm in Australia. That story coming up next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
In southeastern Australia, a string of ancient quarries has been discovered under farmland near Canberra. Now, Indigenous leaders and archaeologists are working with farmers to try to keep the site safe. In Australia's southeast, this grassy, treeless hill looks like any other in the surrounding landscape. But as its current owner has discovered, there's more to the story.
And we'd always called this paddock Bald Hill because of this hill here. We didn't really know if it had any special significance. We knew it was kind of a bit different.
It turns out Sam Vincent's hunch was correct. The 640-acre farm on which his family has run sheep for decades is an ancient Indigenous site. And after approaching an Indigenous archaeologist, a remarkable find was made.
We had a close look and found a number of artefacts on the hill, and then we started identifying broken pieces of the hematite crust, which had a lot of coloration, yellows and purple.
The land, now owned by Sam Vincent's family, was part of a string of ancient sites that had been mined by Indigenous people for generations. Using the area's distinctive stones, they made axes or ground it down and mixed it with water for use in ceremonial paintings.
Not only just the quarry site itself, but there's other cultural objects and places around here as well, such as, scarred trees and artefact scatter sites.
So it's now called Derawa Daura, which means yellow ochre. which I think is pretty cool.
Since the discovery of the land's ancient past, the Vincent family has started collaborating with indigenous families who have lived in the southeastern part of Australia for tens of thousands of years. They've also had the site officially recognized on a list of significant places maintained by the local state government.
But what I like about this process is that it's grassroots. We decided to take it on with the traditional owners. We worked, you know, we needed the New South Wales government support, but we started this, they didn't.
The Vincent family says they will continue to graze sheep on the land while sharing access to the old ochre rocks. They hope the land will provide for all cultures, old and young. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.